Tasia Fortune's death has alarmed a lot of people, sparking fears about racially motivated murders. Now, police haven't said exactly how she died, but this morning, her mother telling our team that she knows her daughter did not do this to herself.
Her mother saw her 8 days before she died and said she looked at peace. 8 days later, Tasia Fortune's body was found hanging from a tree behind an abandoned house in Jackson, Mississippi. No note, no official cause of death, even now. And the only person publicly named in connection with her death wasn't arrested for her death at all. He was picked up on a completely unrelated weapons charge. So, who was Tasia Fortune? What actually happened to her in those 8 days? And why, more than a week later, does no one, not police, not the coroner, not her own family, have an answer to the only question that matters? Before we go further, if you're new here, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Mystora Crimes covers real cases with care and accuracy, no sensationalism, just the facts as they're known, and the questions still left open. If that's the kind of storytelling you're here for, we'd love to have you with us. Tasia Fortune was 29 years old. She was a mother of 4, and by every account from the people who knew her, she was the one who held her family together. She had lived in Mississippi for more than a decade, building a life there, raising her children there. In late July of 2026, she left that life behind for a few days and traveled to Kentucky for a family reunion. Her mother, Christy Spivey, says she last saw her daughter on July 26, and that Tasia seemed at peace that day, full of the same warmth and strength people had always known in her. Spivey has been clear on this point. Her daughter was not behaving out of the ordinary in the days before she vanished from view. No warning signs mentioned. No goodbye. Just a woman who went to a family reunion and 8 days later was gone. On the night of August 3rd, Jackson police responded to a home in the 500 block of Road of Remembrance. In the backyard of that abandoned house, they found a woman's body hanging from a tree. It took several days for authorities to formally confirm who she was. Hinds County Chief Medical Examiner Investigator Jeremiah Howard identified her on August 6. It was Tasia Fortune. Her body was placed in the custody of the Mississippi State Medical Examiner's Office. On Tuesday, August 11th, more than a week after she was found, an autopsy was finally conducted. And still, as of this recording, Jackson police say they have not received an official cause and manner of death. The case remains formally classified as a death pending investigation. That single fact, the absence of an official ruling, even after the body has already been examined, sits at the center of everything that has followed. Police have also acknowledged something else worth noting. They know speculation is spreading. In their most recent public update, JPD directly addressed a volume of information and rumors circulating about this case on social media, and asked the public to let the investigation run its course before drawing conclusions. That's easier said than done for a grieving family, because almost immediately, Tasia's family rejected the idea that this was something she had done to herself. Her mother has said it plainly more than once. I know my daughter, and she did not do this to herself.
Tasia loved living life. Like, there's no way that she took her own life.
She described Tasia as strong-minded, full of laughs and love, a woman of faith who had very little materially, but who gave generously of herself anyway. Those are the words of someone trying to hold on to the truth of who her daughter was, in the middle of not knowing how she died. That kind of certainty from a grieving mother is not evidence in a legal sense, but it's a large part of why this case has not quietly disappeared into a routine file. Jackson City Councilman Kenneth Stokes wrote directly to the U.S. Attorney's Office, requesting federal assistance with the investigation, a request made, notably, even before authorities had publicly confirmed Tasia's identity. Her aunt, Etta Volio, started a GoFundMe with a modest $3,000 goal to help cover burial costs, describing her niece as a beloved daughter or sister and friend whose loss has devastated everyone who knew her. Within days, it had raised more than $1,600, small contributions, mostly from people who felt the need to do something. And in the backyard where she was found, something else has grown. A week after her body was discovered, a makeshift memorial appeared there. Pink and white ribbons, rainbow pinwheels, white flowers, teddy bears, all arranged around a photograph of Tasia. It's a small, deliberate act of care in the middle of an otherwise overgrown, forgotten lot, feet away from empty chip bags and discarded bottles left behind by no one connected to her at all. The contrast is something on its own, a place the world had abandoned, suddenly made sacred by people who refused to let her be forgotten there. There's context here, too, that makes this case impossible to view in isolation. Less than a year earlier, in Cleveland, Mississippi, a 21-year-old Delta State University student named Trey Reed, who was black, was found hanging from a tree on his own campus. That same day, in a separate and unrelated case, a man named Corey Zaccatis, an unhoused white man in his 30s, who had recently had his dog taken from him, was found hanging in Vicksburg. Cleveland police concluded that Reed's death was a suicide, a finding consistent with preliminary examination by the Bolivar County coroner that found no evidence of foul play. But Reed's family and their attorneys were not satisfied. They called for an independent autopsy and for authorities to release security camera footage from the area. The Mississippi State Medical Examiner separately determined that Zaccatis died by suicide as well, though misinformation spread quickly at the time, including false claims about his race. And there is a third name now woven into the same difficult pattern of scrutiny, Nolan Xavier Wells, an 18-year-old whose death, following a 4th of July boat trip, has also drawn public calls from his family for a fully transparent investigation. So when Tasia Fortune was found the same way in the same state, within the same short stretch of time, the reaction was immediate, and it was about more than just her. It became part of a much larger, painful conversation about how law enforcement in Mississippi, a state with a difficult civil rights history, investigates the deaths of black residents, and how much the public can trust the answers it eventually receives. Jackson police, for their part, have been careful with their language throughout. They have not called her death a homicide. They have not called it a suicide. Their public statements have remained consistent. This is an active investigation, and they are working to determine the circumstances surrounding it. That caution is, in one sense, exactly what responsible police work is supposed to look like. But for a family that has already waited more than a week without answers, it can feel unbearably slow. Then came a name, Terrence Anderson, 65 years old. Anderson was named publicly as a person of interest in connection with Fortune's death. It's worth pausing here, because this term gets misunderstood constantly, and misunderstanding it can do real harm to a real person. A person of interest is someone investigators want to speak with, someone connected to the circumstances in some way. It is not an accusation. It is not a charge. It is not evidence of wrongdoing. It is at most a starting point for questions. Anderson was taken into custody, but on a separate, unrelated weapons charge, not in connection with Fortune's death itself. His brother, Tony Anderson, confirmed the arrest of reporters and offered context that complicated the story rather than simplifying it. According to Tony, Terrence and Tasia shared a 5-year-old son together, and that child had been living with Terrence. Tony described the relationship between his brother and Tasia as one that had its friction. Sometimes they'll have a few occasions where they may get into it or whatever, he said. But he was direct in stating that he does not believe his brother was involved in her death. That a family member speaking on behalf of someone he loves, offering perspective the public has no way of independently verifying. But it's also the only first-hand account we currently have of the relationship between Anderson and Fortune. That's the tension sitting at the heart of this case right now. A man connected to Tasia through their shared child, named publicly as a person of interest, arrested on a charge that has nothing to do with her death, while the actual cause of that death remains officially undetermined even after an autopsy has already taken place. Two things can be true at once. Investigators may have legitimate reasons to want to speak with someone, and that same person may have no connection whatsoever to a crime, if a crime even occurred here. Neither possibility cancels out the other, and neither has been confirmed. It's also worth noting who has spoken publicly and who hasn't. Fortune's mother has spoken. Her aunt has spoken. Tony Anderson has spoken on his brother's behalf. But Jackson police have said very little beyond confirming the basic facts. The discovery, the identification, the ongoing wait for medical examiner results. When reporters have asked directly whether persons of interest have been interviewed, police have declined to elaborate. That gap between a community full of voices and an investigation that offers almost none is uncomfortable to sit inside. It leaves people filling silence with their own theories, which is exactly what police say they're worried about. That silence from law enforcement, paired with a very public and emotional response from the community, is a large part of what turned a local case into a national story. Bernice King, daughter of the late Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., addressed the case publicly, and her words capture the balance this story requires. She cautioned people not to rush to conclusions, but she also acknowledged why that caution is so hard to hold on to here. She said the circumstances evoke a painful history for Black communities, particularly in Mississippi, and that this history is exactly why transparency, thoroughness, and truth are essential. That statement sits at the exact center of this case. Not an accusation, not a verdict, a demand that the process be taken seriously, precisely because of what a hanging death evokes historically, and precisely because rushing toward any conclusion, in either direction, risks getting it wrong. For Tasia, for her family, and for anyone whose name gets attached to this case before the facts are known. So where does that leave us right now, honestly? Here is what is confirmed. Tasia Fortune, 29, a mother of 4, was found hanging from a tree behind an abandoned house in Jackson on August 3rd. She was identified days later by the Hinds County Coroner's Office. An autopsy was conducted on August 11th, but no official cause or manner of death has been released, and the case remains classified as a death pending investigation. Terrence Anderson has been publicly named a person of interest and is currently in custody on an unrelated weapons charge. He has not been charged in connection with Fortune's death. Her family, publicly and repeatedly, disputes the possibility that she took her own life. Here is what remains disputed or simply unknown. Whether Tasia's death was a suicide, a homicide, or something else entirely has not been determined by any official body. What role, if any, Terrence Anderson had in the circumstances surrounding her death has not been established by investigators. Police have not released a timeline of her final hours, nor detailed what evidence, if any, connects Anderson to the scene beyond the fact that he shared a child with her, and whether federal investigators will formally step into the case, as Councilman Stokes requested, remains an open question. What we're left with is a family in mourning, a community carrying the weight of recent history, and an investigation that, even after an autopsy, has produced more questions than answers. Was Tasia Fortune's death a tragedy that ends in grief and no further explanation? Was it something else? Something that demands accountability? Right now, nobody outside of the investigation itself truly knows, and it would be irresponsible for anyone, including us, to claim otherwise. What do you think happened in the 8 days between when her mother last saw her at peace and when she was found in that backyard? What questions do you think investigators still need to answer before this case can be laid to rest? Leave your thoughts respectfully in the comments below. If this case moved you, subscribe for more real investigations, told with care, accuracy, and respect for the people at the center of them. We'll be following the story as it develops, and we'll bring you the truth as it becomes known.